Okay, we're going to get started here on your persuasive speech critiques, and we'll start with Miro, M-I-R-O. Very good appearance, slight soft focus in your video. You need to maintain the pace that you're going at in your speech. You need to work a little more on your vocal variety. You had a very good job on this speech with very interesting information. You presented good ideas. You had good arguments for all sides. This was well presented, and you had very good visuals. Be careful saying things in a speech like, as you can tell. I may not agree with you, so don't lead me into something that kind of suggests what my conclusion would be based on something you've said. You need to just state your facts and let me go from there. And you also had something that I hope you can see from my speech, and those are kinds of things you probably want to leave out of a speech. Now, I'm not going to lecture too much on this one. It's late in the game, and we're not going to get too involved, but many of you, the mistakes you're making are that you, again, have failed to read directions, follow directions on things that we've talked about all semester, and so I just won't dwell too much on that, but I just want to leave with Miro that this was a good speech. It was too long, so you want to make sure that you follow up on that. All right, next up is Gamecock, and you have an excellent appearance. Your speech was way too long, and that doesn't help you. Why did you start with summer is ending? That's, you may get attention that way, but try to be a little more contemporary with your references. You had good reasoning, you had great use of facts, except for the length, which was too long. This was just about as good as it gets for a persuasive speech. Your student assistance fund was a very interesting point. I'm not sure I've heard that before, but good point. I'm going to look up that to find out more about it. Careful assuming that larger colleges will pay more, and don't forget about the role of the NC2A in all of this, and watch your word endings where you use getting, getting instead of getting, ing. Let me hear the G sound on all of that. All right, next up is heaven. Your speech outline misspelled the title of what it was you were talking about. And more than that, your outline was for human sexuality, which was not the topic of your speech. If your audience thinks this is a joke, then I will too when I grade it. If you cannot control your audience going by the camera and being cute, then I have no reason to pay any attention to what you say. You have the wrong shot composition. Again, it's the end of the semester, and here we are saying things we said on the very first speech. You're reading your speech. You only have 3 sources listed. You laugh during your speech. Where is your visual? You're shooting into a light. Again, these are all things we've talked about. You have a distracting noise from a TV and people talking. Some of your sentences get twisted in your own situation. Are you suggesting treating kids' ADHD? I'm not sure what you meant by that, but that was something that got... You have a disconnection between your outline and your speech, which is very unacceptable. And your speech ran very short, and there were no visual aids. Next up is Ralph. You're not citing your sources in your speech to support your facts. Those are facts in quotation marks. Lawmakers don't agree with you. They make laws not to agree with you. They make laws, and in most cases they don't even care whether you agree with the laws they make. So their role is not to have you agree with them or them agree with you. Their role is to fulfill what they believe they were elected to do. You are not supporting your assertions Watch vocalized pauses. This was short in terms of length, and you and I have had communication about some other problems with this speech, and I strongly suggest that you pay very close attention to those issues in the future. Next up is pacers. Very good eye contact. Interesting visual. Your outlines are not labeled. This was an interesting topic. You had a weak ending. You are not citing your sources in your speech for the facts that you state, and carefully read the instructions for the speech and then follow them so that you are doing what it is you are supposed to do. And this speech was a little bit short on length. Next up is cardinal. Cardinal, this was too long. Your outlines weren't labeled. Don't start talking until you have assumed your position. Pause for a second, then go. You moved in and began your speech. It was very abrupt. Hold the visual up long enough for someone to see or read it. Your outlines aren't labeled. Watch your pronunciation of some of your words. You rushed your ending and lost your point. And you talking about genetically, and you have genetically. So you want to make sure that you work on your pronunciation. Next up is bears, and this was very well done. In fact, you nailed it on the time. Stand still when you talk. I cannot read anything on your visual. You're throwing out technical terms. You're overusing SNS. And then the issue, of course, is which ones. You talk about benefits without acknowledging problems. You had a very abrupt ending. Watch your grammar. You have several pronunciation problems. Your outlines are not labeled. And you don't support your assertions that SNS improved relations, SNS's improved relations with others. Okay, next up is Prez, and this was way too long. Your outlines were not labeled. Your appearance is very good. You start by saying, this is the informational speech, and then correct yourself. Okay, I'll give you that. But boy, be very, very sure when you start your speech that you are in total command. Your outlines aren't labeled, as we said. Slow down a bit. Your haste is causing you some flow problems. You mentioned that Monroe County is one of the poorest counties in Indiana. What's your source for that? When you make an assertion like that, you need a source. You ran far too long. This was a solid presentation. I don't want to mislabel that part of it. Very well done. This was a very good persuasive speech. And you, unfortunately, had only one very weak visual to support it. But overall, a good and persuasive speech. Okay, that's your critique for your persuasive speech. I will be sending out a critique separately for your special occasion speech, and we'll be posting final grades and get all of that out of the way. Make sure, look at the grade book. If you have any speech that you have not submitted, make sure you understand you cannot pass this class unless you submit every single one of the speeches. So if you have a 0 for a speech, I don't have it, and we need to be talking because actually today is the end of this class, and I'll be turning in grades Monday. So we need to get moving on any of that situation if you intend to do anything about it. All right, if you have any questions, as always, call me in my office, and that'll do it for now. We'll talk to you about your special occasion speech next time.